I need you to do something before this story begins. I need you to look around whatever room you are in right now. Look at the plug sockets. Look at the chargers. Look at the small electronic objects you have stopped noticing because they have been there long enough to become invisible. Now ask yourself, did you put all of them there? I did not ask myself that question for 6 weeks. 6 weeks of living in a room that I believed was private. 6 weeks of changing my clothes, making private phone calls, crying when I was overwhelmed, existing in the unguarded way that you only exist when you believe you are completely alone. I was not alone. My name is Joanne. I was 21 years old. And the person watching me was someone my parents had trusted with my life. This is the story of what he did, what I discovered, what I did about it, and what every girl living away from home needs to know before she unpacks her first suitcase in someone else's apartment. My parents made the arrangement in August. I had been accepted to a university program in the city, 4 hours from the town. I had grown up in 4 hours from everything familiar. The cost of student accommodation was significant. My parents were not poor, but they were careful with money in the way that people who have worked hard for everything they have tend to be careful. My mother's nephew, my cousin Zach, had been living in the city for 6 years. He was 28. He had a good job in logistics, a 2-bedroom apartment 20 minutes from my university campus, and according to every family conversation I had ever been present for, an impeccable reputation. He was the cousin who came to every family gathering, who remembered birthdays, who helped my uncle move house 2 summers ago and refused any payment for it. He was, by every available measure, one of the good ones. My parents called him. He said, of course, he had a spare room. He barely used it. Joanne was family. It would be no trouble at all. My mother cried a little from relief. My father shook his hand at the farewell dinner and said he was grateful beyond words. I moved in on a Sunday in September, with 2 suitcases and a sense of cautious optimism about what the next chapter of my life was going to feel like. My room was small but clean. Single bed, desk, wardrobe, 1 window overlooking the street below. Zach had put fresh sheets on the bed. There was a small vase of flowers on the desk that he said his girlfriend had suggested, though I would later understand he had no girlfriend and never had. For the first 2 weeks, everything was fine. More than fine. He was easy to live with, tidy, respectful of my schedule, occasionally cooking dinner for both of us and asking nothing in return except company at the table. He asked about my courses, remembered details from previous conversations, made me feel genuinely welcomed rather than merely accommodated.
I called my mother after the 2nd week and told her she had been right to trust him. I want you to hold on to that detail. The phone call. The reassurance I gave my mother. Because it is important that you understand that Zach was not immediately monstrous. He was careful. He was patient. He understood that the most effective way to trap something is to make it feel completely safe first. The first comment came in the 3rd week. I was getting ready to leave for a morning lecture, standing in the kitchen in jeans and a fitted top, making coffee quickly because I was running slightly late. Zach was at the kitchen counter reading something on his phone. He looked up and said, "You look really good, Joanne." You know that? Not aggressively, not with any obvious intent. Just said it, the way a person might say it casually and mean nothing by it. I said thank you and left for my lecture. But something about the way he had looked at me when he said it, the quality of the attention behind the words, followed me onto the bus and sat beside me for the entire journey. I told myself I was being ridiculous. He was my cousin. He had been nothing but kind. I was a 21-year-old girl living away from home for the first time, and my nervous system was simply adjusting to a new environment by finding threats in neutral moments. I was wrong, but I would not know how wrong for another 3 weeks. The comments continued, each one individually explainable, each one collectively forming a pattern that I was too inexperienced and too isolated to fully name. Comments about how I dressed, questions about who I had been with and what we had done that had no reasonable basis in cousin concern. A hand on my shoulder when he passed. Behind me in the kitchen that lingered 2 seconds longer than it should have. The specific quality of attention he gave me when other people were not present versus when they were. A difference so pronounced that I began to feel like I was dealing with 2 different versions. of the same person. The knocking started in week 4. Late at night, after I had gone to my room, a soft knock, not aggressive, not demanding, just present. Just checking you have everything you need. I would answer through the door that yes, I was fine, thank you. He would say goodnight, and I would hear his footsteps retreating. I started locking my door. The first night I locked it, I lay in bed for a long time listening to the apartment. At 11:15, I heard his footsteps in the corridor. They stopped outside my door. I heard the handle, the faintest pressure against it, barely audible. Then silence. Then his footsteps retreating to his own room. He had tried the handle. I did not sleep properly for the rest of that night. In the morning, he made breakfast and asked about my upcoming assignment, and everything was normal, and I spent the entire day trying to convince myself that the handle pressure had been my imagination. It was not my imagination, but the worst was still coming. I discovered it on a Tuesday morning in my 6th week. I had stayed home from university with a headache, lying in bed, drifting in and out of sleep. The apartment quiet, because Zach had left for work at 8 as usual. At some point mid-morning, I noticed the phone charger plugged into the socket beside my wardrobe. I noticed it because it was not mine. My charger was white and slightly frayed at the connector end from months of use. This one was black and new, and I had no memory of it being there when I moved in. It had simply, at some point in the past 6 weeks, appeared. I got out of bed. I walked over to it. I looked at it closely. There was a small hole in the top of the charger block, almost invisible. The kind of hole you would never notice unless you were looking directly at it from the right angle. I picked it up. It was slightly heavier than a normal charger. I searched the words on my phone. Black charger, hidden camera. The first result showed a product identical to the one in my hand. I sat down on the floor of my bedroom, and I could not move for a very long time. When I was able to think clearly enough to act, I checked my laptop. I searched for applications I had not installed. I found one buried in system files under a name that looked like a standard system process. The kind of name designed to be invisible to anyone who did not know what they were looking for. A remote access application, installed 6 weeks ago, 3 days after I moved in. He had been watching me through my own webcam. He had been watching me through a hidden camera in my bedroom. For 6 weeks, I went to the bathroom and was sick. Then I sat on the bathroom floor for a long time with my back against the cold wall and my knees pulled to my chest, and I tried to think. I could not go home. I had no money for a hotel. My parents were 4 hours away, and my mother had a history of heart problems, and I did not know what this news would do to her. I had no close friends in the city yet. Only classmates I had known for 6 weeks. I had never felt more alone in my life. I was still sitting on the bathroom floor when I heard his key in the front door. He had come home early. I heard him call my name from the hallway. I did not answer. I heard his footsteps moving through the apartment, kitchen, living room, then stopping outside the bathroom door. "Joanne, you okay?" I did not answer. A pause, then, "I know you found it." His voice was completely calm. The voice of someone who had prepared for this moment. I opened the bathroom door because I understood that staying inside it was not going to protect me from anything. He was leaning against the corridor wall, arms crossed, expression composed, looking at me the way someone looks at a situation they believe they have, fully under control. He said, "Before you do anything dramatic, think about what I have. Think about what your father would see, what your mother would see, what your university would see." He let that sit. Then he said, "You're a smart girl, Joanne. Smart girls understand when a situation has one practical solution." He told me what he wanted, directly, explicitly, with complete confidence that the recordings gave him everything he needed to guarantee my compliance. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, "I need to think." He nodded like this was reasonable, like he was a reasonable person in a reasonable situation. He went to the kitchen and made himself coffee, and I went to my room and closed the door and sat on my bed with my phone in both hands. And I did the one thing he had not prepared for. I texted my classmate Hannah. Not everything. Just, "I need help. Something has happened. Can I call you?" She called me back in 4 minutes. I told her everything in a whispered 20-minute conversation with my back against my bedroom door. Hannah did not tell me I was overreacting. She did not ask me if I was sure. She said, "I'm going to find you a number. Don't do anything yet. I'll call you back in an hour." She called back in 40, minutes with the number for a women's rights organization that had a cybercrime division and a dedicated line for exactly this kind of situation. She had already spoken to them. They were expecting my call. I called them from the bathroom with the tap running. The woman who answered had a calm, trained, completely unshockable voice. She took my information. She explained my legal options clearly. She connected me within 24 hours to a female officer in the cybercrime unit who had handled cases involving hidden cameras and digital voyeurism before. I was told not to remove the camera, not to delete anything from my laptop, not to confront Zach again or indicate that anything had changed, just to continue as normally as I could manage for 72 hours. Those 72 hours were the longest of my life. I sat at dinner with him. I answered his questions about my day. I performed normalcy so completely that looking back, I do not know how I managed it. Every time he looked at me, I felt the specific nausea of knowing what was on his devices, and knowing that within 72 hours it would be in the hands of people who would use it to destroy him rather than me. On the third morning, I left for university at the normal time. 2 hours later, Zach's apartment was searched by the cybercrime unit. They found the hidden camera. They found the spyware on my laptop. They found recordings on 3 separate devices. They found evidence that suggested I was not the first person he had done this to. Zach was arrested at his workplace at 2 p.m, in front of his colleagues, in front of his manager. With no warning and no opportunity to compose himself or construct a story, he was charged with voyeurism, criminal installation of surveillance equipment, digital blackmail, and criminal harassment. He did not look like one of the good ones anymore. I want to speak to you directly now. If you are living in someone else's home, a relative, a friend, anyone, and something feels wrong, please hear these words. Check every plug socket and charger in your room. Any charger or plug that you did not bring with you yourself deserves a close look. Hidden cameras disguised as chargers are widely available and widely used. A small hole in the face of a charger block is the most common sign. Cover your laptop webcam. A piece of tape. A sticker. Anything. When you are not actively using it for a video call to cover it. This costs nothing and protects everything. Check your laptop for unknown applications. Go to your application list and look for anything you do not recognize. If something looks like a system file but you cannot identify what it does and search the name, trust your instincts. Tell one person. Just one. Hannah saved my life by knowing one phone number I did not know existed. You do not need a plan before you tell someone. You just need to say the words out loud to one human being who is not him. A family member committing a crime is still a criminal. The family relationship does not protect him. It does not obligate your silence. It does not change what the law says about what he did. Blood relation is not a shield for abuse, and it is not a reason for your suffering. Cybercrime units have female officers trained for exactly this. You do not have to tell your story to a stranger who does not understand it. You can ask specifically for a female officer. You can bring someone with you. You have rights inside that process. And finally, the recordings he has of you are not your shame. They are his crime. Every single frame of them is evidence against him, not evidence against you. The moment those recordings go to law enforcement, they stop being his weapon and become his destruction. He counted on your silence. Your voice was the one thing he could not record. Joanne survived, and so can you.